Good afternoon. I just wanted to touch base with you at home with what we are working on in reading class. I want to start out by saying we are working on standard RI 2.2, which is to identify the main topic of a multi paragraph text. Our learning target is we are learning to identify the main topic and focus of each paragraph in a text. This is extremely important to use these key words when we are teaching the students the standard. So, the first thing that I want to do is I want to introduce the topic, and so I create a PowerPoint. And this PowerPoint has an anchor chart and an example of what we did today in class. So let's take a look at the anchor chart. So the students are going to have to know what the words main topic is referring to. So in this case, it's what the text is mostly about. And it's supported with key details, and it's found in informational text, which is like nonfiction books. Now, the question is, how do we help our students find the main topic of a story or a paragraph? Well, the first thing that I would do would be to look at the title. So I'm going to go over to my passage, and I highlighted the title, and the title is Honey. So that kind of gives me a clue of what the passage is going to be about. Well, then I could look at the pictures. In this case, we don't have pictures. So we're going to have to come up with pictures in our brain. And I'll come back to that in just a second. And the last thing is you need to reread the first and last sentence of the passage or paragraph to help you find the main topic. So today what I did is I allowed my students to go on an imaginary journey, and they closed their eyes and they made some mental images of the things that they saw, heard, and tasted as I read the story. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the story, and then we are going to take a pause, and you're going to have mental images in your brain of what you see, what you hear, and what you taste. Bees make honey. They fly from flower to flower. They get nectar from the flowers to make honey. Then the bees take the nectar back to their hive. There, they make a lot of honey. People can take honey from the hive. Be careful. Honey can stick to your hands. Honey tastes good. It is sweet. Thank you, bees. So at this point, I allow the students to think for about 30 seconds to a minute. And then I had them open their eyes. And then I started calling on them to tell me what they saw in their mind with their mental image. A lot of students started talking about Winnie the Pooh and the honey. There were some students who have actually tasted honey before. There were some students that described watching the Bee Movie on Netflix. So all of this, they were using their background knowledge of what bees are and what bees can do for us to make these mental images in their brain. Now, so the majority of the students drew pictures to see of a bee and flowers. Then when we talked about what you hear, they were talking about the buzzing of a bee. And I made it clear that I am no artist by no means, but if I know what a bee looks like, I can kind of get it down on paper that it's a little round insect with wings and stripes and it's yellow. And I can kind of look at that and say, yeah, that's kind of a bee. And I know that because that's my mental image. Last, we talked about taste, and some of them had, I think maybe 90% of them have actually tasted honey. So they're able to say that it was sweet, and they knew it come from a hive, and they knew the hive would hang from a tree. So all of these mental images were coming to them, and they got really excited because as they were drawing, I was drawing, and they couldn't see my drawing. So when we started comparing, they were shocked that what they were seeing was the same thing that I was seeing in my mind with my mental image. So then we stopped and we went back to our anchor chart. And again, we looked at the title, and the title was Honey. Then we were looking at our pictures. So we saw bees and flowers, and they're flying, and a hive hanging from a tree with honey in it. So all of this stuff we were talking. Then we went back and we read the first and last sentence again. Bees make honey. Thank you, bees. So then I asked my students, so just by those three things, what would you say the main idea or the main topic of our paragraph, honey? And immediately hands started going up, and they're like, well, it's about bees making honey. And I said, you're exactly right. It is. And how do we know that? Everything in that story is about bees and what they're doing. And they noticed that when we flipped it over on the back for the comprehension questions, they were like, hey, we've already answered that on the front without even answering it on the back. So they found that doing this mental images and following the graphic organizer, they already had the answers in their mind before they could even read the questions. So it really worked out well. I would recommend at home to find a very short, very simple nonfiction text, informational text, and let your child create some mental images and make those connections to their previous background knowledge of various things. And we're going to try this again tomorrow, and I hope to videotape the whole lesson. And that's about all I have. So I hope you enjoy. And if you have any questions, just write me on Class Dojo or send me an email. Good night.